We are now on air. Time for a total takeover.
It's finally here. Welcome to a new episode.
It's about to go down.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, first and foremost, giving honor to God and to my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ for allowing me to see another day. And as you can see, I have no control of how the earth spins on its axis. It is 6:50 a.m. here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And as you can see, the sun has not come out yet. But your boy is back after, I think, more than 2-week hiatus. Part of it because I had COVID, I had gastroenteritis in the hospital and all that crap. But today I am and can say 100% healthy. And I'm glad that God has led me down that path to this point. And I want to make things short and sweet because I got a lot of clips I want to get to so you guys can get caught up if you haven't been in the know. But I think now, and I think I'm going to make a t-shirt called the 3 C's: Christian, Constitutional, Conservative. That's what I am. So anyone has any doubt of where I lie, where I lay, if you want to say, or where my foundation is, the 3 C's: Christian, Constitutional, Conservative. Don't get it twisted. May God continue to bless you and yours. Peace.
President Biden talks a lot about democracy, as he should. Democracy depends on the mutual acceptance of rules, norms, and institutions. President Biden's southern border policy has undermined that principle. He has completely opened the southern border, and he has looked the American people in the eye, and he has lied and said the border's closed. Now, most Americans' people skills are fine, but they have a low tolerance for morons, and they don't like being treated like a moron. They don't like the president lying to them, and when they call the president out, they don't like the president calling them Nazis and racists. Most Americans support legal immigration. Look, the whole world wants to come here, Harris. I mean, when's the last time you heard of somebody trying to sneak into China? They want to come to America, and Americans support that. We allow 1 million of our world's neighbors to become American citizens every year, more than any other country.
Yes.
But the American people feel that illegal immigration is illegal. I mean, duh. And last year we had close to 3 million people, to say nothing of the fentanyl, that streamed into our country, and we do not have the slightest idea who those people are. And because we ask, the president says we're all racists and Nazis. The American people look at the southern border like they look at their home. Most Americans lock their front door at night. They don't lock their front door at night because they hate everybody on the outside. They lock their front door at night because they love people on the inside, and they want to know who's coming in and out of their house. And that's the way most Americans look at the southern border.
Meghan, why is the liberal media, where you are, trying to link the life of Queen Elizabeth II with seemingly every ill of the British Empire, when actually the late Queen was the woman who transformed the British Empire into the Commonwealth? It doesn't make sense to me.
It's envy, it's identity politics, and it's ignorance. You know, they're complaining in particular about this diamond in the Queen's crown, and it's part of the crown jewels, and it has been for a long time now, since the mid-1800s when the British Empire got it from India. And they're saying that must go back. It was the product of plunder. Well, I took a little look just to see. Was it the product of plunder? Well, it turns out that there was a man named Lord Dalhousie, a Scottish statesman and Governor General in India, who allegedly coerced the Indian leader into gifting it to Queen Victoria. Now, the kid was only 11 years old, so perhaps there was coercion. How do we know he coerced it? Well, he wrote it, the Lord did, in a letter bragging about how he got it for Queen Victoria. Well, do we know whether he in fact coerced it, or do we think he might have just been boasting about his overly important? We have no idea because it happened 150 plus years ago. Right? So let's go back a little further. Did India come by the diamond? Honestly, I don't know. A simple Google search told me that it used to belong first to the Iranians, and then their Shah was murdered, and suddenly it showed up in Afghanistan, and then their king was murdered, and suddenly it showed up in India. So how many generations do we need to go back and do right by when we figure out where this diamond must eventually rest? Who among its prior holders has absolutely clean hands? You see, it's really hard to tell, Dan, because it happened hundreds of years ago and none of us knows the true lineage or how one thing wound up precisely going from one person to the other. Right now, when it was in the hands of India, this particular area actually used to be Pakistan. So Pakistan's saying that they have a right to it. This is the problem when you try to do this weird revisionist history demanding reparations and to return things to their natural state, 200 years ago? Or should we do 300 years ago? Who's that going to upset? We're wrestling with this right here in our own country now, where people like Sunny Hostin want reparations for American African Americans as well, even though there's no way of tracing virtually every single white person. Where did we come from? Did we come from slave owners, or people like me who are Irish who had nothing to do with the slave trade? Or black people, did they descend from slaves or didn't they? Are they immigrants who came well after the slave trade was over? We have no idea. Now, when you do it the other way around, when you come out as the biographer of record for, let's say, Martin Luther King, and you won awards for your reporting on him, and you get one of the biggest leaks of the century, and you find out that MLK was actually present for a massive, disturbing sexual abuse of one of his female congregants, and not only did not stand up to stop it, but seemed to be totally fine with it, that you cannot cancel MLK, and you cannot talk about him. And on MLK Day, it's not important to remember the full legacy of the man, because that's what's honest. No, that gets swept under the rug by people like Sunny Hostin. But when it's Queen Elizabeth who has the wrong, skin color, the wrong history, because she's British, it's fair game. And whether you're a university professor or a moronic television host on the stupidest show on TV, The View, you can get away with it as long as the target doesn't check certain boxes.
Very well put, Megan. Very well put. The other one that really surprised me, was Christiane Amanpour from CNN. Now, she's a CBE, Megan. So here she is talking about the need for reparations and the fact that our British Empire was such a terrible thing. She's a CBE. Do you know what that stands for, Megan? A Commander of the Order of the British Empire. Didn't seem to have any problem accepting that little gong, did she?
Of course not, right? She is one of the worst offenders, and Sunny Hostin the same. These are two people who see race as the prism through which they want to view everything, or identity politics in general. Sunny Hostin, let's not forget, was the person who sat there and held up the sign that read, "Hands up, don't shoot," after one of the police-involved shootings that we had over here a couple years ago involving a white police officer and a black man in Ferguson, Missouri. Well, that was a lie. That black man did not say, "Hands up, don't shoot." He was the aggressor, as told to our Department of Justice by 5 black witnesses. Did Sunny Hostin go on the air and say, "I got it wrong again because my ideological blindfold is on," as it always is when there's anything touching race? I only take one side because I'm blinded by this ideology. No, she did not. And how about that other reporter you showed from CNN referring to Meghan and Harry and the 2 other royals? Oh, you mean the future king of England? That's how stupid and ignorant the reporters are over here. They only follow the ones who give them the drama they need and say the proper things about the royal family, meaning it has to be horrible, in order for the CNNs of the world to really want to cover them.
No, indeed. Indeed. And obviously, there's a real irony, Meghan, because the US TV networks want to keep on covering this story. They just have to do it in a negative way because, of course, it's great for their ratings. But I think the thing that they're missing when it comes to Queen Elizabeth II, or Queen Elizabeth the Great, as I'm now referring to her, Meghan, is that this was the ultimate feminist. You know, there is so much for the woke, for the left to celebrate about this woman, and they don't seem to want to do it.
And she celebrated both parties. I mean, everyone was praising Elizabeth the Great in the wake of her passing last week, on the right and the left. Show me an American woman who's been in a position of power, a leader, who that's true of. There isn't one. We don't have such a person. That's not really the way our country works. And we've never managed to elevate a woman to a position of power like Queen Elizabeth was in to begin with. So I think it's just power. It's the identity. If Queen Elizabeth had been a black queen, you wouldn't be hearing any of this, right? This is just how people are. And they're too mired in victimhood. I mean, we've had Michelle Obama. She became First Lady of the United States. She went to Princeton undergrad. She went to Harvard Law School. She worked for a very respected law firm in Chicago. She becomes First Lady. Her husband becomes President of the United States. They unveiled her official portrait last week, and his. And she took the moment to point out the people who built this building, you know, in the White House, they never anticipated someone who looked like me would become First Lady. Okay, but you did. And this is the country that made that happen. So maybe now is a time to celebrate the greatness of this country and the fact that we did put you in office and your husband in office for 2 terms in a row. But there is a collection of people, and it's not divided by race. It's not white or black. It's woke and unwoke, and the media is all woke. That sees everything through this identity politics prism. And Queen Elizabeth has the wrong skin color to get their approval. And even if it were Queen Elizabeth, because, of course, as you know, she wasn't the one presiding over most of the things they were upset over. She's related. She's connected. She's got crowns that have jewels that if we trace the history back 500 years, we might find a way to be offended, which is their bread and butter business these days.
And right now, the biggest human trafficker on the face of the planet is Joseph Robinette Biden Jr. He has transported hundreds of thousands, millions of illegal aliens, populating them now, putting many of them in red states. He's happy to put them in red states where it's not the rich people's concerns. It's the little people's concerns. You know, all of the folks on Martha's Vineyard happily voted for Joe Biden. Well, they can live with the consequences of the lawless policies that right now the people of McAllen, the people of Laredo, the people of Eagle Pass, the people of Texas are feeling the price for this. And Biden still won't change. Instead, what does he do? He lies to the American people. He sends Karine Jean-Pierre out to claim nobody is crossing the border illegally. It's a flat-out lie. And all of the docile little sheep in the press room, they baa like sheep, and they ignore the fact that she's lying to the American people. The media needs to cover her lies, and this outrage needs to stop, because you know what? These blue governors and mayors are right. It is a crisis, but it's not just a crisis when it's the millionaires who are inconvenienced.
You know, it's over 3 million people, Senator. We have to secure our borders. It's simple. Follow the law, follow the Constitution, and respect the laws and borders and security of our country. Simple. Senator Ted Cruz, thank you for being with us.
So I'm going to ask you, will you remain a Republican, regardless of what happens in the next election?
I'm going to make sure Donald Trump, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure he's not the nominee. And if he is the nominee, I won't be a Republican.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that Kari Lake is not elected.
So, does that include campaigning for Democrats if that's what it takes?
Yes.
It does. Okay, very well. All right.
I want to point out what Liz Cheney has said about you when speaking at this Texas Tribune conference yesterday. She says, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure Kari Lake is not elected. Your reaction?
That might be the biggest, best gift I've ever received. I mean, the people of Wyoming can't stand her. I'm pretty much sure that the people of Arizona don't like Liz Cheney. Here's the deal, Maria. The Republican Party, the new Republican Party, is the party of we the people. It is no longer the party of warmongers. And so Liz Cheney probably should change her voter registration. Turns out she really is a Democrat after all.
Is there any argument that Democrats can make that will make inflation not the top issue on voters' minds as they go to the polls?
I mean, look, I think Democrats understand that the stakes are high. This is a consequential midterm, and we know we have to defy history. That being said, look at the alternative. What are the Republicans planning to do to harm you, to harm the economy? Joe Biden has really done a fabulous job, I think, in making sure that everyday Americans can feel the things that he's doing, whether it's lowering gas prices, making sure that our supply chain is now moving forward. He just stopped a rail strike, which really would have crippled our economy. So, look, we know we have a big job to do in motivating people to get out to vote, but most importantly, Joe Biden is playing the long game. That's why I'm still with Joe Biden. I'm riding with Biden, baby.
Matt Walsh joins us tonight. Matt Walsh, thank you so much. And for, among other things, illustrating how journalism can be a force for good, I think yours has been. Have you spoken to anyone at Vanderbilt Hospital about this directly?
Well, Vanderbilt Hospital, I mean, we reached out for a statement when we first published the report, and at first they didn't want to give a statement, and they actually just took down, as you mentioned, they just deleted. That's what people have to understand. They deleted their entire transgender clinic website. They wiped it from existence. And then today, not to us, but in general, they released a statement. And the interesting thing about the statement they released is that they do not, while they start by claiming there's misinformation and so on, they don't actually factually dispute anything in my report because they can't, because everything that I said wasn't me saying it. I was just providing video evidence, much of which you played there. Well, we know for a fact, this is an absolute fact, that Vanderbilt, they perform double mastectomies on minor girls, on children. They chemically castrate children, and they give them irreversible hormone drugs that change their bodies permanently. They're doing all of that to kids. And the other thing we should note, and I'm glad you mentioned all the other hospitals around the country, because the things I just mentioned, that's happening all across the country, in every single state, in many hospitals and in many other medical clinics. All of those things are happening. And one of the reasons why it's allowed to keep happening is because people don't know about it, because they're not talking about it. And I think for a lot of average Americans, people just walking down the street, it's sort of unthinkable. They can't imagine that this sort of thing is actually happening, but it is, which is why we have to start by raising awareness about it. And we have to do that no matter the game the left plays, by saying if you so much as mention what they're doing, it's incitement and terrorism, which is absurd. But we can't bend to that tactic. We have to keep shining a light on this.
Cutting the breasts off little girls? Sterilizing 14-year-olds? Okay. Yeah, we're not the criminals here. And by the way, I've got to believe that not everyone on the board at Vanderbilt Medical Center is a bad person. I've got to believe a lot of these people had no idea this was happening. And I hope they know now, and I hope they do something tonight to end it. I appreciate your coming on and for all you've done on this. Matt Walsh, thank you.
Thank you.
For the first time since the pandemic began, Dr. Fauci is finally speaking the truth, allegedly. The nation's top doc admitting this about his draconian lockdowns.
When you're dealing with a situation where the hospitals were being overrun in New York, intensive care units were being put in hallways, you have to do something that's rather draconian. And sometimes when you do draconian things, it does have deleterious consequences on the economy, on the school children. You know that. But you have to make a balance.
There he goes, smearing the draconians again. How racist. Anyway, thanks to Fauci and teachers' unions, those school closures erased 2 decades of students' progress in math and reading. 2 decades. I didn't know that. And speaking of teachers' unions, leader Randy Weingarten blasting Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, saying it's his fault kids aren't thriving.
We would ask the governor, instead of smearing teachers, instead of calling them names, roll up your sleeves and work with us to actually help kids thrive. The people who are standing behind me, they want to teach kids They want to make a difference in kids' lives. They didn't come into teaching to be demagogued, to be dehumanized, to be smeared.
Oh, do your job, for God's sake. Dana.
Yes?
What do you make of Fauci? Seems very defensive.
Well, the media tours continue, and I've always said that he probably would benefit himself if he did less media.
Right.
I've said that for a long time. Said that to him when he was on my show in the middle of an interview. I was like, you really should stop doing so much of this. Everyone at the beginning signed off on the lockdowns, even reluctantly.
Exactly.
Right now, I think what happened is the public health experts were then allowed to go way beyond their jurisdiction, because as I feel, this is how I feel it should work. Public health expert comes in and says, Mr. President, Mrs. President, whoever it is in the future, here's what we have. This is the situation. This is what we are recommending. And if we do this, X, Y, Z will happen. If you do that, ABC will happen. That's our opinion. But now we turn it over to you, the elected leader of the people of the United States, and then you get to decide, because you're the one that balances the risk and makes the decision based on that. So we got away from that. And you knew that right away when the schools were continuing to be closed, but we had new information. The new information said kids aren't spreading it. Kids aren't getting sick. Kids are falling behind in school. Nobody can deal with the Zoom classes. And they didn't change anything for 2 years. That's why Randy Weingarten is out there blaming DeSantis when he actually opened the schools. So I think the parents can figure that one out. And the other thing was just on businesses. So it was very strange. Why was it that Home Depot could be open, but the small mom and pop hardware stores had to be closed? And it became unfair and outrageous, and it's left a bad taste.
There were so many mistakes, Jessica. I think across the board, a lot of people made mistakes. But to Dana's point, is this something where when you have a lockdown, people didn't want to unlock it because if something bad were to happen, then they would be responsible for so there was a lot of kind of cowardice and covering your ass kind of mentality in all of these bureaucrats.
100%. They were going to be blamed for whatever happened if it did go wrong. And now they're getting blamed for what happened when it did go wrong. It was just the kind of wrong that we didn't think was going to happen in the first place. You know, this idea that kids are going to be fine, they're resilient. Children are resilient, but we know that they do need social and emotional connections with people, that they need to be interacting, they need to be in classrooms, they need to see faces. That's one of the strongest arguments against everyone's being masked in these environments. And now even the most liberal schools are saying that kids can take off their masks, and it's up to the parents to choose what they want to do with them. We've been presented with a lot of trade-offs. Remember when it was, you don't need a mask, but the truth was that we didn't have enough masks. And people in elected positions, bureaucratic positions, need to treat us like adults. People can make these decisions for themselves. We all take calculated risks, no matter what we're doing in the day. Crossing the street is a calculated risk when we're going to leave the building after this.
Especially now.
Just tell me.
Traffic is crazy. Anyway, we're running out of time, but this is something that is going to be pushed back against teachers, obviously, and Fauci.
Well, this is going to go on forever, Judge. The constant. Why can't he just let it go, retire,
go away,
go play? Does he play golf? I don't know.
I
Maybe
don't know
he should.
what he does. He doesn't play baseball. That's for sure. Look, I mean, I'm tired of hearing from him. I'm tired, and I think everybody's tired of hearing him try to justify what he did. And then on top of it, you've got this sandwich where Randy Weingarten is trashing Ron DeSantis and saying, you should be working with us. No, Randy, you got the money. You should have opened the schools. And DeSantis was showing the country how Florida could open the schools, and the Catholic schools, the religious schools, and the charter schools that were all open. And I just think that this back and forth and everybody's kind of tired of it. Fauci doesn't have credibility. And part of the reason is that a decision was made to listen to Fauci, as opposed to doing something like a Manhattan Project, where we brought in the best of the best, as opposed to a guy who's been there for 40 years, who makes all kinds of money, who's invested in all kinds of drugs, who was involved in gang of function funding. I mean, this is not the guy we shouldn't have been that we should have been listening to, and that's the one thing that I come away with. He was the wrong guy, and we should never rely on the one guy. I mean, certainly in the end, the president made the decision, but there should have been a panel of experts.
So, Jesse, why doesn't he just shut up and write a book?
He is, isn't he?
Yeah, I'm assuming so.
Yeah, the book
Keep all the tidbits for the book.
Yeah, the book will be out right when he leaves office,
Yeah.
so he doesn't have to face the Republican Congress.
Randy's a viper, isn't she? Isn't she a vicious woman? If you're supposed to be all about the children, wouldn't you want to work with every governor? And that governor down there in Florida, he did right by the students. The Florida students probably did the best of any of the students. He didn't shut down any of the schools. And then he let the parents decide whether or not they were going to mask or not. So Fauci also took two positions on the lockdowns. He told Cavuto 4 weeks ago that he doesn't regret any of the lockdowns and the school closures did not harm the kids. And now he comes out and says, yeah, the school closures kind of harmed the kids. You think? You can't isolate a 6 or 7 or 8-year-old for 2 years when they're going through that developmental stage where they're learning how to be social and how to relate to people psychologically. These people are scarred for life, not to mention all the people that died from suicide and drug overdoses. I mean, the guy should be sued by every child in the country, class action, child abuse. I'd work that pro bono, even though I don't even have a law degree.
I don't think you need one.
I think
your skills are enough.
If I was charged with a crime, I would defend myself.
I think you should.
Oh, wow.
I think to prove, I think to prove that you should go commit a crime and then defend yourself.
I'll be right back.
Yeah, thank you. Kilmeade's right out there. Just hit him in the back of the head. All right, up next, the latest act of liberal city depravity. A homeless man caught on camera throwing poop at people.
Standing in the front of the class, gonna break it down for you. Overlooking part of your past, gonna make it even for you. Even though you got a problem with authority. Never Tom Cruise reports are not a minority. Looking for the right moment, so I can make this announcement. I'm the one who did it, get left behind to get with it. Blast from the past, Brendan Fraser aftermath. Take a minute, rediscover your chosen path. A reality check is on tap, non-stop, so hip-hop, jazzy boom bap. It's pure fact, melodic with the script. This A-list crowd is gonna hear me say it. At the top of my lungs, no refunds, rebates or BOGOs. So nostalgic, playing at the Polo Grounds. The sound is certified dopeness. I'm the one that wrote this, so let me focus, man. Come on.
My party people say all around the world. My party people say all around the world. My party people say. My party people say. My party people say. My party people say all around the world. My party people say all around the world. My party people say. My party people say. My party people say.
Make a firm decision, stick with it, never second guess. Leave it out in the open, these words have been spoken. So while you're coping with your anxiety, lyrical sobriety, sitting there denying me. Take it where you wanna be, solid like some concrete. This vibe is so alive, you can't control your feet. Let's begin with another wise notion. Left you stranded, no paddle in the ocean. Now you're hoping for a new type of hip-hop. Bass heavy so hard makes the floor drop. Releasing this new atmosphere, so melodic to the ear, I'm gonna take it there, oh yeah. Feeling obligated, sort of insulated. Bringing things full circle, never overrated. Things happen for a reason for sure. Put my pedal to the flow, breaking down your door.
My party people say all around the world. My party people say all around the world. My party people say. My party people say. My party people say. My party people say all around the world. My party people say all around the world. My party people say. My party people say. My party people say.
Took on a new type of flow for this. never overlooking obstacles, relied on the practical. Took my smooth voice, all I did was slow it down. Hooked it up to another R33 sound. You hear a resounding ovation, not a complication, not a irritation that you wanna scratch or do away with. Always shooting the gift, blast off from the lip. Carry all the pressure that the world can't handle. I'm giving you the full, not a chopped up sample. Musically, one of the best that you'll ever hear. Fingerprints invalid, not a smudge or smear. Take a year, clear your mind, better get resigned. Choose another career, cause I'm the one you fear. The safe route is no doubt the background. My party people keeps yelling for this funky sound.
My party people say all around the world. 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 My party people say.